Talking about you got this and you got that, and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. When blah, blah, fuck, I forgot the rest. It's just me and my boy Jesse. What's poppin', baby?
What's going on, buddy?
Ain't shit. It's another day in the life. Berkey.
What is that? We're 22 minutes late. You couldn't come up with the intro?
I forgot the intro.
It's the same intro.
We were talking about something else. I was thinking about something else. I forgot the intro.
What do you mean come up with the intro?
He panicked because I told him to throw it to me today. And he saw me typing, and he just his brain melted.
Yeah. I was like, well, Jesse's next to me. This works.
Oh, bro, I talked up how good your intro was last time I was on.
That was great. It's even better
I
when
feel
you
like,
fuck it up.
Do you want to know the worst part?
You are great at the landing.
Do you want to know what the worst part about this is? Actually, Conrad, let's start over. Guapo, cut back to Conrad. Give us your intro. Give it to us like you
really mean it.
Maybe like it's the last one you ever give.
Wow, this is what is poppin', everybody, and welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, it's me and my only friend, which includes, but is not limited to, Berkey. What's poppin', baby?
That was excellent.
Well class.
Thank you so much. We do have a very special episode today. We're joined, as always, by the same cast and crew that you see day in and day out, including, but not limited to, the third place finisher of the 25K at PGT. Welcome back, Landon. It's been a long time.
There he is.
Hey. Hello.
I missed you.
We don't get a clap
did
for
miss
third
you.
place. You should have fucking beat Shannon in Aces versus Fives.
Yeah,
That
that was bad. Okay,
It's
now
his
that we
year.
got that out of the way, we have an actual special guest
The fourth place finisher.
who joined him at this final table. Unfortunately, did not ladder up. Well, fortunately, I don't know. We'll talk about it. The Queens. We'll talk about the Queens. For both of you, the him beating the Queens, you having the Queens, like we're all over the place.
He passed away as well.
Yeah, he did pass away. Welcome to the show, the one and only Nicky P, the real Nicky P.
The real Nicky P.
Yay!
There he
Thanks,
is.
boys. Glad to be here.
I have to start off by asking you probably the most important question, at least from my vantage point. How bothersome is it to share a nickname with Palma?
It's funny because I've
You might want to pull that mic a little closer to you.
Really make it violate you.
Yeah,
you
get it
know?
right up
like
in
it's
there.
college all over again.
Jesus.
It's fun. It's funny that because Nicky P he's an East Coast guy, so I grew up with him at Foxwoods. So I've been hearing it forever, man. I've got more Palma stories than anybody else, so it's not new for me. And I've always just kind of laughed with him and joked around. And every time I see him in the bathroom or anywhere else, he's like, "I'm the real Nicky P, dude. I'm the real one though, for sure." And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, you're the real one. you can have that. That's cool."
Oh, he's a real one, all right.
Do you think he's the reason you're not on Twitter? There's not room for both of you?
I have a lot, but I have a lot of reasons for not being on Twitter. But he definitely, I'll let him have that space.
That's very, very
noble.
Very noble of you. Very reasonable, I think. I'm not going to lie. For clickbait purposes, we just put Nicky P in the title. Let the audience decide who's
Right.
going
Which
to be
one?
here. Yeah. I mean, we might get the whole collective, you know?
Yeah. Palma's on tomorrow.
Some
Saturday.
legend shit.
Yeah, some Saturday shit. Well, first and foremost, congratulations on a hell of a career. I have to tell you, growing up as an East Coaster myself, I always knew of you, but, much like everybody else, just kind of out there grinding the tour, doing your thing. And it's actually Jonathan, who I know you're good friends with, Jonathan Jaffe, that I was much more familiar with, much closer with, and kind of got to know you indirectly through. Tell me a little bit, I guess, of what that leap was from, grinding MTTs or I guess, we kind of spoke a little off air, some cash back in the day, to just going full bore into the high roller scene.
Yeah, I mean, as everybody knows, I think that John had a big part of it in my development and stuff like that. But I played a lot of online poker, and I was basically just, he was my backer and my coach from the very beginning. And there was, when we were putting in a lot of volume, and then after Black Friday, I was, a really good online poker player, but it was pretty clear that if I wanted to move up in stakes and start doing something that was a little bit more fun than living in Montreal and grinding the big 55 every day, the switch was going to be to live poker. And so I started going to some EPTs, and really my goal immediately became when I saw the guy, I'm one of those guys, I mean, I'm sure everyone here is very competitive. I went to a few EPTs and I saw the 25Ks and the 100Ks going on, and I was just like, I have to be playing that. I can't deal with not playing the biggest game in the room. Is that a very healthy mindset to poker? I don't think so, probably, because maybe, I should have been playing, maybe I played a little bit higher up too early, but really the progression was I got some exposure to online poker. I got some exposure to live poker, and I realized that I really wanted to play the highest stakes, and that seemed like the best job in MTTs at the time. The super high rollers were not really an ego game. They were actually really high value. So I went back to Montreal and I decided I was going to actually start doing a lot of solver work and, consuming as much content as I could. And it just kind of was like really working on the technicals. And I got lucky at one of those EPTs when I was playing lower to run into a German kid that I was playing against. And he said, I thought you played really well today. Are you selling for the 100K? And I was like, oh, I'm here. I want a satellite to this one, and I'm leaving. I'm not playing the rest. I was in a main, and that turned out to be a guy named Hendrik Latz, who was a huge backer of a big German fund that was put back in all the super high rollers. That was in like 2012. And yeah, that was after that, I never stopped playing them. So I had kind of done some work, but I really got lucky with this one situation where this guy just plucked me and was like, we want to buy all your action and 25K plus for the, and then the first few times I sold to them, I had really good results and it never stopped. So I was really, really lucky because I was definitely playing a little bit above my skill level for sure, but they had faith in me and results kind of sort of worked out immediately. And then I've been playing ever since. And then obviously you learn by playing. So that helped me get better fast just being in the game.
Yeah, I remember that mid-2010s era, like the 2014, 2015, because this is when I was still pulling double duty. While I was playing like the Ivy Room game, I was maybe only getting like 300 hours a year, 400 tops. So I would play a lot of MTTs as well, and the Florida 25K comes to mind as like, one that was in the early days I couldn't miss. And I remember talking with Jonathan and like how excited he was. Obviously, he just same kind of guy, wants to be playing the biggest game in the room at all times. He's just an absolute ravager. And he was like really proud of the success that you were having and your trajectory. And I just remember you were winning fucking everything, or at least it felt that way. Maybe you were just like, getting top threes a lot.
I think Fedor was winning everything, right. And I was happy to get like fourth to second and everything, and no one knows because it was just Fedor's time. I hid behind a few of those heaters in some of my best years. Like when Bonema went on his crazy heater, I was getting like third. I was like, that's fine. They can
you
win
were the
all
second
of them.
heater.
Yeah, it's fun. I think we actually talked about this once on the show, maybe a few weeks ago even, where we were going through kind of the high roller Hendon mobs. And I don't know this for sure, but I feel like we went through yours and we were like, he has, 25 plus million, maybe it's over 30 million at this point in scores. And I don't remember there being a lot of like first place finishes.
38.8.
I actually, with the high roller stuff, it really matters like when and what you win, right? So I was fortunate to have some of my biggest scores be in like 10Ks, I think that's probably the biggest difference with my Hendon mob is like the only really big wins I have are the WSOP 100K and the win 10K. Those are my two biggest scores, I believe. So it's nice to have those in tournaments where, like the softest 100K of the year or like a 10K as opposed to, I had, having 5% of myself in $1 million buy-in and winning 10 million. It's not very exciting.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting point there. It's one I wanted to kind of switch to. At some point, no better time than now. When you first got into this, obviously you were kind of saying like, look, these things were super soft. They were new. They were trying a lot of attraction, or they were attracting a lot of fish and whatnot. And I'm sure that the ROIs in the early 2010s were double digits for good players, if not more. What do you think of the landscape now? Like, is it truly a viable career path for people who make it to the highest level, like yourself, Bonomo, etc.? What on not to out anybody or to get into anybody's business, but like what's a range that you can expect year over year if you're playing like say everything, which I assume is probably around 8 million in buy-ins? Like what are we looking at like ROI wise?
So so to your point about the early high rollers, like I think even I remember selling to them at 1.16. So like it was a very different, and not just me, like because Timex would put his numbers on the board and that was kind of a ballpark, and the numbers were really high, what people thought for ROIs, right? And the fields were more polarized. So what's happened now is there's an influx of really good players, right? Like, and even so, if you have a bunch of new regulars, even if they're losing to you, they're still costing you money, right?
Right.
The most extreme example is like maybe you got a guy, these Tritons, all these things are 6% rake. You could have a guy that's out there losing money all the time, and you're just like, you should really stop doing that because you can't beat 6% rake, but you're also fucking me because you're taking money from the fish. So like, you stop losing, and you're costing all of us money. So the way the landscape has changed is there's that, right? There's a lot of very reasonable regulars that are never going to be considered the best, but there's big groups of them, and they're playing 25K plus, and they can go to a computer and rebuy instantly, and you're always going to have them in for max bullets. No one needs any cash at these big events at Triton, right? So you just have, if there's a good late reg spot, you got 40 regs that are hopping in, right? So none of that stuff really, all those little things that used to exist back in the day where you had the polarized field, you didn't have people hopping into good spots because there was a big barrier to entry, which was the stakes and the liquidity. It doesn't exist at the highest stakes at Triton now. So what you end up having is really tough, really low ROI tournaments that are very turbo, and you could just lose forever and ever and ever.
So that's actually super interesting because I always thought of it as when these high rollers started using cryptocurrency as a form of payment, I thought it would be good for the games, but it sounds like your interpretation is that it's actually been kind of bad for the games overall.
I would say this. I brought that up just as in terms of like, you know, and I know I didn't even answer the question about the expectation yet, but what I'm going to say is that it's low. So with that, to that point, I would just use an example of like every year before they change the schedule, the WSOP 50K, it used to have this weird, it was a single reentry, right? I think maybe all of them are. So if a bunch of pros just fire 2 right away in a turbo structure, you used to be able to have some spots pop up where like, oh my God, I can register and like 60% of the remaining people are going to cash, right? But it's because you don't just have like, if you have a stable of, you know, online guys from Latvia, not everyone just has 50,000 cash to take to the cage right there. If it happens at Triton, you better believe that entire stable is going to be in that tournament in 5 minutes, right? So yeah. I was just bringing that up in terms of, you know, it does take away from that. Obviously it's good. It's very good for the games in terms of people that play for fun do not want to have to deal with wiring a bunch of money to Montenegro or wherever else, right? In terms of the expectation, I believe that the ROIs are low. I think that they're there. The volume of buy-ins at Triton is so high that you could argue that with the low ROI, you're still making a good dollar value, but the variance is so crazy that is it a good job? I think that the best way to utilize Triton as a pro would be you've saved up money, you maybe have other ways of making money, some consistent income, and you just get some awesome backing deal, and you're both on the same page where you're like, we're going to fire super hard and try to make infinite money, but it might not work, and you might lose a bunch, and it's not going to affect your life either. Okay, cool, let's do it, you know? Like, that's what I do.
Is a backing deal even better than selling at, like, say, 1.03 or 1.05? I ask this because, like, say you do have a backing deal, right? And your ROI is like, let's give it a very liberal 10%. And you fire 10 million worth of buy-ins. So your expectation is to profit $1 million. You chop that, you make 500K. Let's say that you take the same 10 million in buy-ins and you sell at 1.05, which maybe that's high. I'm not really sure what the market dictates right now. But if you have a 10% ROI, I assume that's pretty fair, right? So now instead you just take that free 5% and you free roll the whole thing. Now kind of the same thing. I mean, I guess at that point you're only making 50K. So I answered my own question. But
Also, when you lose, it's not on you.
Yeah,
Where if
you're not out
selling-
on the street when you just like dust everything off and
right,
lose your whole
and you
bankroll.
could buy a bigger piece of yourself, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, the bigger point I'm trying to arrive at is like if the best in the world can only get like 10 million worth of volume in, and their expectation is a generous 10%, which is $1 million in return, and then they're profit chopping that in some capacity, whether they diluted themselves through selling or they're back themselves. Why is this path so appealing? Because to me, this is by far.
Who's saying it is?
Well, people are doing it. People are playing.
Well, it's not just that people are doing it.
I don't sit around and be like, man, this is amazing. I'm so happy it went this direction. Like, obviously, I wish I was playing, cash here and driving back and forth to my house. But, that's not a reality for
But,
me.
you're the kind of guy who could have, I guess. I don't know you super well, but I know you well enough. Like, you can fit in these environments really well.
I think I missed the boat a little bit because sort of what's funny is that, like I said, when I first started doing this, it really was like you could play online, you could go to EPTs where there's very low rake, great structures, you have a really big win rate, and you're going to all these places for the first time and it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
So during the period of time where maybe I could have cultivated my live cash experience, I was on a heater in tournaments, traveling around the world, I was single, playing whatever I want. I had infinite backing from the German guys, so I was never like
Adventureland.
I should go make best friends with whoever runs the games in Bobby's room, right? Like that just wasn't. So then I missed it, and then now, of course, like private cash, of course, like however you want to say it. Do I think that strictly only playing Triton is like a great way to try to make $1 million? Like for sure not. I mean, I'm probably down like 5 million at Triton, not my money, but
You
so
get the point.
it's kind of like, and again, like I'll show up. It doesn't owe me anything next week when I get to Montenegro. It's not like, oh, he's
owed 5 million. Let's give him a second.
Bad, like I'm just gonna turn. It's like it doesn't have to. We're playing 20 hands an hour.
Yeah, I think people think that Brewer was like this wild exception of having the worst run ever, and
he
he's
got
just
such a bad rap for that. Be like, that was, it's not to interrupt you, but it's it's sad. Like people are like, this guy, he got backed and he lost $10 million. It's like,
That could have been anyone.
it's like you go, everyone I know just lost 2 million in Jeju.
Yeah, you see the profit loss for the series minus 8 million.
I mean, I can speak.
When you see a guy who looks like Gandalf in all the
J-
winners photos,
J-
you're like, I think all my friends
Everybody
lost
else
2 million.
lost.
Yeah.
Plus 20
It
million.
was brutal for like all like the top ranks for sure.
And then there's like all these narratives. I heard somebody at the table the other day where he's like, some young online kid is like, do you think like, the Americans can still win since they don't play online poker? And then they look at like, they're like, he's down this much. It's like, dude, we're playing like average stack 16 big blinds in the money.
Right.
Buddy, this is
Like,
going to be you.
Like, what do you think
A
is
little bit of variance.
What do you think is happening right now? No one has to agree like who's the best or worst, but the margins are so thin. I think even the results are wild. And like Chris, yes, like he knows this. I've talked to him, so I've even said it publicly. It's like, did he have some issues with like playing well all the time initially? Like, sure. Do we all? Yeah. Was he a little bit too aggressive in some spots? Maybe. Yeah. Did he just run terrible above all else? 100%. That's most of what happened. He's an exceptionally good poker player. So I just don't, for somebody that criticizes somebody's results like that, it's sort of like, so what do you think Chris was doing when he just didn't win for a whole year? You think he was value betting hands that only get called by better hands? Like, you think he was just like
Just playing the whole deck everywhere.
calling the river to see if somebody just mucks and doesn't show? Like, well, how bad do you have to play for that to be like you put up, go put up a negative like 80 ROI season and then try to make reasons for it. Like you can't possibly, like you could be trying to lose and not have that
People
bad a
don't
result.
understand that part of it, right? They don't understand what the actual reasonable within one or two standard deviations of the bell curve is for negative ROIs. They think that a guy like Gandalf is losing like 95% every time he buys in, and then just happen to like sun run a couple tournaments, right? This guy's maybe losing like 4-5%, if that.
I don't know what his ROI is. I did go deep in that tournament with him. He did seem to probably optimize his fund strategy where he just made sure that he put I think the worst thing that a losing player can do is put a lot of chips in and fold a lot.
Yeah.
He does not do that.
Right.
So that
There you
worked
go.
out fine.
There you go. Not minus 80.
Right.
Yeah. I think so that conversation is funny because like the one time I was truly able to see what negative 40 to 60 looks like was when we played 25Ks around the clock for like months and months
on GG.
On GG.
And you got cheated.
Yeah, there
One
was
of the
a
good guys, the big three.
There was a little bit of cheating, but
Nice way to put it.
that's a different conversation that feel free to ask me about. But I do think that I'm entering that contract. Like I'm playing I played huge 6-handed cash, and I'm like, that guy's cheating and that guy's cheating. But that guy's really, really bad, so it's okay.
Right. You gotta give it
We've all been
somewhere.
there. Like,
Yeah, of course. You're entering. So I knew that stuff would be going on. So if I play and lose and then complain about it, I don't think that that's cool on my part because it's kind of like sure.
You're
but,
free rolling the cheating
Signed up for
aspect.
it.
Really.
like say something before, the cheaters are still building the game with you and stuff. It's like, whatever. But that I saw.
Thursday
Very
W
interesting way
Coop
of looking
Sunday.
Good luck, grinders.
So good.
That negative, like I saw what that looks like, and it looks like a guy that you start the tournament and he has 100 big blinds and he opens and the way the strategy evolved is we started 3-betting to 40 big blinds because he didn't fold. So the game started normal the first few days, and then somebody really smart just 3-bet a good hand to like half their stack when you're playing 100 BBs deep, and then the guy calls with like 8-6 offsuit, and then you're like, okay, we're all going to do this now, and there's no adjustment period whatsoever, and so that's what negative 60 looks like. It's not just a guy that's not a pro making some bad like shoves. They're like, he shoved Jack 9 suited preflop for like 40 big blinds. Like,
Okay, he
whatever.
can win.
He's going to win sometimes.
Sometimes people fold.
And you see it with other players too, like Jean Noel. And I do think that this is a different part of the question, but with these bad players, their ROI, they might have the biggest win rate at the table. I'm not even trying to be funny. I can watch younger players or players that aren't as experienced with playing against these types of players, pay them early in these tournaments in like 200 or 400 big blind pots where they're getting back 0% of the pot on the river, right?
Yep.
So everyone's like, oh my God, how are these fish on the heaters? Like, I don't even want to name names of who's a recreational or whatever, but you can see there's some guys that are up millions and millions of dollars. And it's not a coincidence. It's like user error on the reg part, giving them all the money in spots where they have 0 bluffs. These guys, like, people not piecing together, like he opened 6-7 off under the gun. It's like, yeah, but like he
all the money
never
we
But like he jammed for 2x pot on the river.
Yeah, exactly.
We talk about this a lot in
love-
private cash.
Yeah, people love saying like, "Oh, did you see this guy open something to justify a river call down?"
Right.
That's like the most like the trope that's existed throughout my entire poker career.
I get
I've heard
trashed
the
for
most.
this a lot, but I quite often say that young, inexperienced online players who try to transition into a very soft, high-stakes live environment will have a very rough onboarding period. It's not that they won't become the best player in the game, but out of the gate, they're nowhere close to it, and it's exactly what you just pointed to. They get into nodes where they are winning 0% pot share, and they're investing stacks quite often. And nobody really seems to want to acknowledge that as being possible. Like, well, this guy's, mechanically sound, and he's way better than you are at the thing. It's like, yeah, but I pay attention.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where the ROI conversation comes up in like the bigger field main event type structures,
Yeah.
where some people believe that you can have greater than 100%, and part of that's predicated on just playing early and having a set and getting paid by hands that are always worse.
And also just being very good at navigating
And
those,
not doing
those
that
spots
yourself.
where you're winning 0 with a pot.
yeah,
Like finding ways to not put chips in those nodes. It's an art form in some sort of capacity. You have to be able to get into the psychology of somebody who's really terrible at the game.
yeah. It's scary though. There's some times where you think that that's the case and you're wrong, and then you make some big fold and
Yeah,
you know?
100%. I just think like when you do have that ROI conversation, a lot of times, like, I don't know if people are playing this guy this badly until there's like 10 players left, like he might even just be winning that day. And then what does he do when final tables happen? He just like jams and 3-bets a lot, and then all of a sudden he's just not really that bad, you know?
Yeah.
Like he's getting paid early, he's playing super loose, aggressive, gambly late when everyone's playing tight, and he's gonna win sometimes.
And then just like plays tighter NFTs or whatever.
Yeah, because
like
people get scared. But there's money on the line now. You know, there was no money on the line except their buy-in.
I think some of the appeal to the, call it like Triton grind, is also if you do have like a nice backing arrangement with someone that knows how poker works and can afford you going on a big downswing. Sometimes with variance being what it is, like you're the chosen one. And then when you're the chosen one and get to win a few $1 million for doing that, that's pretty nice too, with no risk to yourself.
That was all I was going to say, is the big difference that no one really talks about too is like shot taking for like utility of money, right? It's like you already have a certain amount of money that you're fine with, and you're like, it'd be cool if I won like $10 million playing poker next year. And
how do I do that?
It's possible. I can only do that if I go play all these Tritons. I mean, part of the outside of joking about that stuff too is like, it is of course, like I said, I was playing a lot and I'm thinking it was really high EV. Now it's the highest form of competition, right? Like, do I think it reveals who's actually playing the best? Certainly not, because of the structures, but it's kind of like the biggest game in the room conversation. It's like, if they're there, I'm not going to stay home. I'm not ready to do that yet. And also it's really the only place I've had like truly horrible results. I have a little bit of a competition thing going on with that. So I don't want to stop. And obviously, again, it's like, that it is actually worth money theoretically. It's not like we're going to gamble.
No,
for free,
but certainly like you're playing much higher stakes than I am, and our downswings look similar and our upswings are magnitudes apart. And I think like that's the thing that I like want to pull at a little bit and kind of like better understand, because I'm not just talking about Triton, right? It's the entire high roller scene. Obviously, like Ghost stuff may be softer debatably, but it's also much smaller. There's the WSOP stuff now. It looks like they're adding a lot. The WPT's adding a lot of high roller. The high roller scene's not going anywhere. Right. But my curiosity comes from the way the structure of the community is formulating is tournaments are our best marketing strategy, and it's not even remotely close. This is how we onboard the majority of players. But we've lost the mid stakes. There isn't a whole lot going on from the 3 to 10K price point any longer. And it seems like it's sub 3K and then, 10K plus. And I'm curious about this because if the best in the world are all isolated into the 10K plus, and there's really no desire to compete anywhere in between, I wonder what the motivating factor is outside of ego, because obviously your ROI in a WPT 3500 is magnitudes larger than it would be in a Triton 100K or even a PokerGo 25K.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think part of it is, again, this all happened very fast and it became the norm where it's like, that's the stop. You had an idea, especially early on in Triton, that it was worth a ton of money. And the first ones that I played, they truly were half the field being soft. So then you get in the routine, and then all of a sudden, as it's going and going, it's like these things are getting tougher. There's more regs. The big thing happening too is these guys that are playing poorly, they're getting better along with everybody else, right? Like they're trying. Like there are very few now that just show up.
I think Carrie's a great example of that.
Yeah,
Carrie's evolved so much over the last 8 years.
Right, and there are. Like Paul Foy, for example.
Yeah, another great example. Yeah.
Any of these got Orpin. Like, I don't know if you know Orpin.
Yeah.
Orpin's basically
He's basically a reg.
Yeah, like probably not basically.
Surprise.
He's a reg.
Yeah, Pinot as well. Like he used to be able to come in on the amateur side. Now he's on the pro side.
And he's probably up like 20 million. For all the guys that are down 5 million, there's like a Punat who's like, This is the easiest place. Like if he was on this podcast, he'd be like, my ROI is like 45, I think. But like actually,
Wow.
But so anyway, I think what you're saying, like I think the appeal is there, right? Like you're staying at nice places. It's free.
Mm-hmm.
Free kind of.
Free when you pay 80,000 in rake for the stop. But it's just this thing where the idea, it's not an illusion. Saying an illusion would be kind of harsh, but there is that thing where like, we got to be we're making like some reasonable money here, like right, like look around, So I don't think we've fully gone to the side of like no one can win, but it's starting to be, as people run worse and worse, it's starting to get to very real conversation. So, but I don't think that the people that started these things when they're so high value and so fun are ever going to be like, I really need to reorganize my travel schedule, and I'm going to be in Choctaw for the 3,500.
Yeah. It's a big downgrade.
It's just that you're playing so many tournaments so fast. It's high variance, but you're still making more money than you would playing. It's also lower, so slow.
If you're playing an 100K with 10% ROI, you're making 10K. If you're playing a 3,500 by yourself 30. On your own dime, you need a 300% ROI to equate.
Yeah,
well,
but you're not
playing
keeping
the
100%.
Exactly, you're not playing the 100K on it.
So maybe you're making like 5K if you're chopping it. So it means you need to have an 150% ROI at 3,500.
Probably close to attainable. I don't know.
I think one of the things that could, it's a rare set of circumstances, but this is actually what I did when I started. It's quite a good job to sell a lot for those, like you said in the beginning, especially if, I think it's totally reasonable for somebody to have like none of themselves if they're very good. They need not even swap and just have like an amount of money that they're going to make for the year that's really solid. That takes a special person though, right? Because they have to be somebody that is that good but needs to sell all of their action, which is rare. That somebody would be that good and then that's not, the player exists, but the relationship doesn't necessarily exist where you have the backing for a player like that, right? Like maybe the best online kid in the world could do it. We just don't know who he is. But so that's a good job, right? And I think that doing a blend of that is really good. There's even guys that did that for the 25Ks we played, right? Because they were crazy high variance, the GG ones we just talked about. They just sold it all, ripped some markup, and then you got a great job. So I think that there's, there is a lot of different ways to do it and make good money. So you can make it work and not be playing lower and putting in so many more. Those tournaments are a lot more hours over the course of the year too, right?
Yeah. I guess like from my vantage point, obviously, I went the opposite path. When high stakes was available to me, I gravitated towards cash, and I had always been in that arena. To Landon's point, like we're being a bit hyperbolic whenever we're saying you're making 10K on 100K. Very few, if anyone, has a 10% ROI. And then you're chopping it down. So it's like, it probably is very comparable whenever you're looking at the hourly, or sorry, not the hourly, the ROI. The hourlies are very different. I was similar. Like when I got into Ivy's room, there was no part of me that wanted to fill the remaining 700 hours that I wasn't playing 1020 public. Like it just didn't seem worth it hourly wise. So I totally understand all that vantage point. I guess I'm curious if you suspect there'll be another shift or a hard shift or a new wave, because the way that I understand these things, having been around for 20 years and seeing markets develop, evolve, and then kind of decline, is that those first movers have all the advantage and never really look back. So like all the guys that you're talking about who got to play those 25Ks on GG and did well, they had, a huge influx of capital. The guys like Ike, who have done incredibly well throughout, that are now able to buy pieces of very like low margin spots, but he has enough liquidity that he can sustain the swings. Guys like Landon's generation, they're not coming into a potential 15-20% ROI field. They're cutting their teeth in 5% ROI spots where they have to dilute themselves. Do you actually think that there's any sustainability for that next wave to kind of make it and start to overtake the top 10 all-time money leaders?
You mean overtake them by just cashes?
Yeah. Or I guess money earned, because they're two different questions. You're right.
Yeah. So I think that a few things for the younger generation, like they're in way tougher games. There's also sort of an unfair barrier to entry for a lot of people that are probably good enough to play high. And if I was a young player right now and trying to, like I said earlier, like even the way I came up, I made a lot of my money initially doing well and like great structured multi-day 10Ks, great structured 3500s, or like winning. You don't really make a bunch of money as a young player by winning 100Ks, right? Obviously, for what you're saying. So I think that there's a lot of availability for these guys. Like playing poker just in the US at those stakes up to 25K, in my opinion, is a very good job. And a lot of guys that I've worked with their coach, it's rare that they have even bad years, and they seem to be doing very well with that. And I don't think there's a reason to actually try to make that jump to to Triton unless you kind of get a nice favorable backing deal and your money's kind of squared away. I would never think that like building up towards Triton would be the goal if I was a young player, because of what we said. It's not really a good source of like reliable income, right?
So maybe more of like an Elias type of career path. Like he's just the GOAT of open.
I think you could just you could just play everything in the state. I think EPTs are amazing. They're low rake and they're really good structures. You know, the high rake kind of turbo-y structure environment with like a million amazing poker players that want to believe, hey, I'm actually that guy sucks. Like did you see what he did? It's like, we're all the same, dude. Like kinda.
You've toasted it with a bluff catcher. They've toasted it. Like it's everyone. Everyone does everything like this. So like you saw him ravaging an ace-4. It's like, yeah, you've probably done something similar.
It's yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, I mean, are we all the same? Actually, no. But it's so little that I don't think that's what I would strive to be as a young player. If ego and competition put aside, right? And if you want to go for it, I think the tools are obviously technically there to get there, and you could. If you find a good backing arrangement, whether it's selling at a reasonable markup or not, it's definitely still a good job, right? And I think that the tour is not going anywhere. So I do think that you can like if Landon found a way to have access to those games, could he catch up to my cashes? Probably, because you just need to cash like 6 tournaments and try it.
Just win a few mains and like get chosen.
But you know, that's kind of how I view the young guys have a tough. I can't say this because, you know, I went to school and I never worked or anything, but certainly there's a lot more ways to make more money as a young person now. When we were young playing online, you're actually seeing like real money playing low stakes and consistent results, and you're kind of like, whoa, I made $400K when I was in college. Like that's a lot of money back then, and now it's like I don't know if that's really there unless you have like perfect game selection and insane amount of. I do work with some online guys that have like insane volume, and that's a great job too. But live poker, it's tough. I would think for sure I wouldn't be gravitating towards like mega high stakes for sure.
I think like honestly, like respect to Shannon, and he just like won. But like Shannon like does it really well. Like plays everything live, US stateside, like any buy-in, like won the 1700 circuit for 250, and like he doesn't have to sell to that.
That's amazing. Like I was noticing his results after I torched it to him yesterday, and then I was like, this guy can't just win all the time and never bluff, right? must have been fine, but no, I mean, like, I did look at his results, and I was like, again, it's like, wow, what am I doing? I'm just going. So why don't I just do what he does? It looks like he's just consistently winning all the time. It is a grind though, right? Like, but I mean, he seems to do a really good job of like, he's ready to just play long hours. He's there on time. I'm sure he does it every single time. And like you said, it's hard to quantify how much it's worth to just, because people could do some math and be like, yeah, whatever. I late reg the 3,500, and I looked, and you don't even win that much more. It's like, how are you going to quantify what it's worth to just get it, to catch the punts all the time?
Yeah, just be there, and they just like give you money.
I would just do that exactly. If I said this to Steven Song, who's another guy who's done that, right? Where I'm just like
everything and plays everywhere.
Yeah, I'm just like, if I had to go back in time, I'd just do what you're doing. You know?
Yeah, look, just looking at like Shannon's results as an example, his biggest scores, nothing came out of anything bigger than a 50K, and there was only one of those. The rest are like 25Ks and below. It's very reasonable to think that he could play at this point in his career an ABI of like 10K plus, maybe even close to the 25K level.
Like he could go play Triton for sure.
Well, right, but that's not my point. My point is like, if he has 16 million in career earnings and like he's retained like 80% of that, he's done pretty fucking well for himself. And I think there's to Nick's point, there's a large collection of guys that are out there seeking this entire path, and I wonder if that's the next wave. My curiosity comes from the ego aspect of it, because as great as we know these players to be, like I think the world of guys like Shannon and Elias. I think they're just like, legends of the MTT space, but they're never going to be considered in that collection of the greatest of all time. I think that they'll be able to campaign for the Hall of Fame, but they're never going to be the first ballot type guys. But they might have very comparable skill sets to those guys that are. There might be guys in the top 10 that are like first ballot guys that are maybe losing by comparison. It's tough to even say. So I wonder like where the line is between choosing the high stakes path versus like this more moderate one, because in cash it's not like this at all. It's the exact opposite. The reason why you want to climb the high stakes is because the competition gets softer. The hourly gets much higher. Everything about playing high stakes is exactly what you dream it to be, you know, albeit it's gate kept. But outside of that aspect, if you have access to it, like, you are opened up to a world of riches, where in the MTT world, it's almost like kind of on the, it's like flipped. It's like a bell curve where the middle is actually where all the money's being made, and the low stakes and the high stakes is where you're really battling for your life.
Yes, I think that you're basically asking the question, you know, for guys like Darren and Shannon, it's like, okay, what are we doing here? We're trying to make money, right? So those guys are good at making money playing poker.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys are, I always think of this, the Kenny Powers fans, right? It's like the Triton guys are like the best at exercising, right?
Right.
It's like, cool, man, you got all your sims, you know, every spot, you know, all these things, and you're traveling all around the world and ruining your body and playing 3 or 4% ROI games. And I stay home in Vegas and I make like $600K every single year. Like, it's, I view it that way, where, you know, like the guys that have that schedule nailed down, they try, you know, they never late reg. They have a lot of different things that are impressive about their routine. You know, long term are the best guys maybe that go on heaters, like going to have in some insane years and then make an amount that you can't do in that grind. Yeah. But overall, I think it's a great way to make money. And to the question of, is it the next wave? I mean, I think, you know, obviously as like stakes rise, the mid stakes is maybe now 10, like Poker Go 5 to 10 has become sort of that mid stakes range instead of 2 to 5 when I was coming up. And I think I'm surprised there's not even more stuff that are more of these like a big 5K main or a big 10K main. But I do think that they're coming. Like NAPT is back. Wynn's doing more stuff. Like they were, you know, a few years ago, you'd never see a Wynn series. Like when I just got back from Jeju, there was a Wynn series that had like multiple 10Ks, a couple 25Ks, also attached to like a 3,500 main. I would love to see schedules like that pop up more, because they're sustainable. Like, people don't need to sell infinite action. The rake is low. Like, there's not as much travel.
Like Florida did really well.
I think that's great. Like those, and it's not, I don't skip those things because I think it's too low. It's just, if you do play all the other trips, something's got to give in terms of like,
you can't play everything all the time.
You can't, unless you're going to have literally no life or do no other work outside of it or not hang out with your family or whatever else. So, you know, some like with even Poker Go stuff, sometimes I just skip, not because it's too low, because it's just something's got to give with the schedule. So I think, I would love to, I think we're seeing it, and I would love to see more of it in different places, right? Because there's still a lot of areas that have a lot of poker that don't have that type of schedule. So I think that's great. EPT is great. Like I said, like it doesn't have to be this mega high stakes where everyone's playing and it's all up to like literally a handful of backers is my assumption. I don't know exactly the inner workings, but it is strange that I'm probably going to get fired from Triton, which is just like, they're never going to give me a deal anyway, because I'm a fish anyway. So who cares? It's like, yeah, we're doing this whole thing, and it's the highest stakes, the biggest 100K in the world. It's like, yeah, if you take like 4 people out of this ecosystem,
it collapses.
It all falls apart.
There's no
it's
100K.
Jenga.
Yeah, there's just one guy who decides.
It's just the biggest fantasy sport in our arena.
I feel like that's kind of why, at least these days-ish, there's a lot more young guys that have a lot of time and energy on their hands that don't necessarily care as much about, like, call it family, friends, or having their own family and things of that nature.
Well, I think Nick put it really well. It's a good job, right? But it's not necessarily a career, right? You're not really working for yourself the way that you are in other independent aspects of poker.
Yeah. I guess like when you're like in your mid-30s and you want to grow up and maybe like have a family and like have kids, like do that stuff, that takes away from just playing itself too.
Yeah.
You know, like at least for me, I love playing stuff and going to go play things. And I'll probably feel like that now for the next couple of years, but that probably won't last.
I got to tell you, I'm going to spend a lot of time trying to get you into cash. But that aside, I didn't mean to like harp on this for so much, but I know this is fascinating to the audience because all of this goes unspoken. Like there's such a mirage of, you know, the guys in the top 10, are just like 100 millionaires, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
It depends what happened with crypto.
Sure.
Right. Like
when did you get in?
I always said this, like when I was at the period like Landon is now, where I loved playing poker, loved playing poker tournaments. I always said that as a poker player, you know, you're not going to make 10, 20, 30 million bucks, but it was a fun. But then crypto kind of changed that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, to your point, yeah, like I don't think anyone really went on that adventure of playing all those things thinking it was going to get here or thinking it was like the best way to make the most money. I think it was really enjoyable in making enough money.
Right.
But yeah, I don't like have any reservations about being honest about what I think about high rollers, and you know, I don't have any delusions about that. I kind of never did. When they were good, I thought they were amazing. I thought we were making a lot, and now I think they're just kind of super low ROI.
Or
and
grind.
Yeah, they're up to all the, like I said, the whole thing is hinging on like, if one guy is like, I don't want to back anybody anymore, it's like, there goes 45 players. You know?
Yeah.
Goodbye, Latvia.
Do you feel like the first couple of years of Triton were a lot softer? I feel like I watched some of those and was like, holy crap, these fields are amazing. And so you do feel like they've just kind of.
That's kind of what I said in terms of like, why is it the way it is? It's sort of like they were amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were
Everybody
referring,
got
when you
trapped.
said stuff was amazing, I thought you were referring to like pre-Triton, like those like EPT high rollers and stuff.
I was, and
Okay.
then the beginning of Triton was really soft. I actually back then I didn't even. It's weird. I didn't really. I was still spending more time on the East Coast, and I was single, and I would always have this like family time where I went to Massachusetts and hung out all summer. So I used to skip Tritons.
Mm-hmm.
Like I loved EPT. I always played WSOP. The first few Tritons, I was kind of like. I wasn't backed. I wasn't backed for a really long period of time. And then when Triton was happening, I was like, I have to get like all this money over there and deal with all this stuff, and it's really far away. And I like my little grind here, kind of like what we're saying. Like I was playing high rollers, but I was still doing the thing where I was playing more normal games, and I wouldn't miss a Florida series or whatever else. That's when Triton started. So I kind of skipped the beginning, but they were truly amazing, right? And then after COVID is when I started really going to all of them. There was one right before, which was in Russia, which obviously we're never going to be back there. And we almost all got stuck there. That was like my first full one, actually. It was in Sochi. So I went to like 2 before COVID. And then after COVID, obviously the game, everyone was way better at poker after COVID, right?
Yeah.
So then they were already really tough, but there was still this thing of like, I can't miss a Triton. Those are the softest tournaments. I can't. Now here we are, right? Like I'm going to Montenegro in 2 weeks to gamble.
I do feel like there are certain stops that seem like they're a lot better. At least the fields are bigger, but they also seem like the fields are better. Like Jeju seemed like it was a bit better of a.
It's like John Jaffe is somebody that's very realistic about these conversations with me as well. It's sort of like the fields are huge, right? But you're sitting around in a huge field, and you're just not seeing that much stuff happen, right? Like there's a few guys that are doing some crazy stuff. And then everyone's playing very reasonable, and there's a million regs. And so the numbers are really big. Sure, people are winning, but they're just huge, tough fields with very few people that are like actually punting, you know? So it's a little, but the Asian market is always better. So Vietnam and Jeju will remain probably always the best ones, especially at that 15 to 40,000 range. You get huge numbers and they're good, but yeah, it's not really what you'd think when you're like, oh, we got 400 people for a 25K. It's like,
yeah, but who are they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I remember hearing specifically that Vietnam was quite good, actually.
Vietnam was great, but it's similar, right? Like,
yeah.
And there's just less. Like even as far back as Vietnam, you still have, I won't name names, but you still have guys like open jamming for 100 big blinds, right? That doesn't happen anymore. Maybe it'll happen in the future. I'm not sure, but I think it's kind of trending in the direction of just being big and tough.
Oh, you just reminded me of the early Carry Cats high rollers before PokerGo existed. There were a couple names who would show up and just rip in like 100 bigs for 4 buy-ins.
Yeah, I mean
those are fun.
It shows the evolution. Like even, high stakes is pretty much dead in the States for a reason, right? Like people got better, or they realized like over the last 4 years I lost $3 million playing poker for fun. Like, I'm just not going to do that anymore. We didn't have that many guys. So Poker Go's correctly kind of scaled it down. And now it's kind of similar. Like, Poker Go is just the young reg tour now.
Yeah.
You know, I go in there and I'm like, man, I've either like coached half these guys or like they're all pros, and it's still not what it used to be.
They're all trying to make a name for themselves. This is where they're going to cut their teeth.
I think what you talked about the liquidity thing, I don't know if we talked about that on camera, if that was before we started the podcast, but the liquidity thing seems pretty important because, like, if you look at US high rollers, for instance, the first one drop was incredibly soft. And then what happened the next one drop? You had like Haralabos sitting outside of the Aria, like with a sack of money, just, you know, putting people in it. And all of a sudden the field was significantly worse comparatively to the first one. And like, as people became smarter on the backing side or the buying side, it seems like things dried up pretty quickly as well.
Yeah, I do think it's also just, even for somebody that is super rich and plays poker for fun in America, for them to have like cash to buy into these things, it always seems annoying, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm standing, like last year, I was standing at the cage and Chamath is like, they won't let me buy in. I can't use this chip, and I don't have, and it's just like, okay, this is like the richest dude in the world, and you can't buy it.
That's insane.
That's just not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen at Triton. Yeah,
Compliance has been going through a big change here in Vegas since that sports gambling scandal. I mean, there's a lot of scrutiny when it comes to the chips.
Well, that's why I just assumed that crypto would make tournaments softer, but it actually makes a lot of sense that it made them tougher.
I think that you wouldn't have as many regs just fight, right? Like, if you actually had to have a group of players that's wiring money and like buying in, the numbers just wouldn't.
You're absolutely right. I only pictured the side of it where Chamath's like, oh, I can use one of my 800,000 Bitcoin. Like, I'm in there.
I think to Nick's point though, the reason why that isn't as helpful as it appears is Chamath. I've played with Chamath a bunch. He's not losing that much. He's just a nit. Right, he just plays ultra conservatively. He plays like a man who's actually on his last buy-in instead of one of 100 million buy-ins that he has available to him. And so, like, he's just not giving that much up. Yeah, he's negative ROI in the field, but it's small. And in turn, by onboarding the process of buying in so much easier, you now have dozens and dozens and dozens of people who are taking his 1% or a fraction thereof. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think he was just sort of our poster boy for the rich crypto.
Yeah, no guy, but not to directly target Chamath, but I think
that guy's a nit.
But I think that, like, he represents a collective of recreationals. Like, I would say the same about Carry. I've played Infinite with Carry. It's like, in a lot of the nodes where like you're making a bunch of money versus recreationals, he's not losing a lot. You know, he's just like not rifling it in for hundreds and hundreds of big blinds and spots where like bad recs are calling down with bad bluff catchers.
But I think too that it's actually like the type of person that wants to choose. If you have infinite money and you choose to play poker tournaments, it's just unless you're rare, it's inherent to the nature of that personality that they're going to be kind of tight. Like they like the experience of like surviving and going deep in the tournament.
The fixed buy-in.
Yeah, it's like
fixed risk.
If that's the guy we're getting, they're never going to be the guy that likes to play, 500 BB deep squid, right? It's not rocket science that these recs and tournaments are just going to be pretty decent.
Yeah, when Santos rockets it off for 500 blinds and like 2 outs somebody, and then just gets to have that million in cold hard cash in front of him and like head to the cage, just as a byproduct of one singular pot, that incentivizes him to want to do that more in the future. When you do that in a tournament and now you have 9 hours ahead of you before you actually make any money, it's a totally different personality type.
He's actually a great example of someone that's like playing like he just is, maybe from what I've seen, like two different guys, right? Like he likes to gamble in the cash game, and then when he's in the tournament, he's just very reasonable, and everyone's like, "Oh, Santos is playing." It's like, yeah, dude, Santos is just like winning 250Ks in WSOP and doing having really.
I was gonna ask, like, what did you think about the fields of those, like the high buy-in WSOP stuff? Because those are maybe a little different.
They're really different.
Are they high rake or low rake? Remind me. Okay,
they're low.
Yeah,
they're low rake. They get special players that don't play tournaments very often.
Bruce Buffer was in there playing the 100K.
I mean, there's a group of kind of I think that, but it's trending into being not great. Like last year was the worst one I've seen. The year before that was worse than the year before. So I think it still applies to America, but they are way better. But like the 300K, for example, Berkey's played it.
Yep.
Back when we used to play it, the initial ones, it was amazing, right? Like
it was incredible.
That was the type of poker tournaments you were playing. Where
I mean,
you're like,
think about the structure of it, right? It was 58 people or 48 people, something like that, and you had to lottery your way in unless you were a special player.
Yeah.
So like over half the field was guaranteed to be recreational.
Yeah, exactly. And then now they've brought that back with these invitationals, which are like probably, again, like the idea that everyone's like, oh, my ROI is this. It's half fish. It's like, well, okay, the first day you got to play 10 hours
with pros only.
Against all pros.
Yeah.
And the other side is blasting.
And carnivoring.
So they end up with all the chips when you move together. Even if you just look at the data of how often they cash or like win these tournaments on the rec side, it's really different.
Right.
And so again, it's a little bit of a trick that everyone's like.
And the worst recs are probably busting too, that you don't even get to play with them.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Like they're the wild man are they're
100
out.
big
Also
red
the-
jammers.
Yeah, also the barrier of entry for recreate. Like I can 100% get in on the rec side, right? Like Sean Perry gets in on the rec side. It's like we're losing in the field for sure, but like how much?
That's the thing. So I think there's a little bit of that, but yeah, to the American stuff, the stuff with WSOP, the big stuff, I think it's great because it's once a year. So there are people that just play, that's their thing, right? Like there's a hedge, I won't name names, but there's like a hedge fund guy. The only time I see him all year is WSOP 250K, right? Like there is that, and it's a great structure. It's low rate. That's a very healthy high roller situation, right? So that one's great. And again, it's a liquidity thing too. Like there's not a backer with, putting 40 guys in that thing.
Yeah.
I feel like your field there is protected a bit too by the tax situation for Euros and different people, which is really kind of benefit. Or I was going to say nice, but nice from our perspective, not from
how good a poker tournament is it can just be very easily directly correlated to like, are there a bunch of like young kids I've never seen before from Europe or wherever else? It's just like those guys are, even if you think you're better than them, it's just like they're just sucking all the money out of the tournament, right?
Mm-hmm. Shifting gears a little bit because I don't want to make this whole podcast about that. Although I do think it's a fascinating conversation and one that I wish we could do
like
or have
ROIs
more
and
often.
career paths.
Yeah, but just more so being open about a lot of the things that people aren't willing. I mean, you
Like
and
the
I,
gloriousness
we
of-
speculate about this all the time because we don't have any skin in the game. But like people who are actually in these high roller scenes that are willing to kind of openly talk about, yeah, we're all trading blinds here, and the hourly is actually not as great as it appears. Yada yada yada. But
I mean, you could talk to guys on Heater and they'll just tell you something completely different.
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm the best, man. What do you,
Right. That's why I think Brewer was so refreshing when he came forward. And I kind of had a different take on it. I didn't really think he was getting flamed all that much, although I'm sure the people that were trashing him were very, very, very loud. But I guess like having publicly gone through like big downswings myself, you just kind of chalk it up to being a figure in this space and the audience not knowing all that much.
like seeing a hand where like you played it pretty good and then like lose, and it's like, oh, there he goes again, like calling it off and being a station.
I mean, I put in 200 big blinds, ace king suited, random aces. Like life is shit.
How
Let's all move
terrible
on.
of you.
But what I'm curious of is I remember a while ago, you and Jonathan did a podcast together, and he credited you with really kind of like bending his arm to get into study. I've known Jonathan since like the Turning Stone days, way back in the day. He's always he's a kindred spirit of mine. He's always been somebody who's just going to go for every single pot. He's a ravager to every degree, and in my experience, that's helpful in a tournament, but it's not like really the backbone of building a good strategy. Like if I were gonna take like a blank slate of marble and chisel out an MTT player, I think I would choose somebody who is a little bit more on the cautious side than somebody who's just like, I had ace high in a spot where I thought he had one bluff and I'm gonna call it off. I'm curious what got you, because your profile has become very much one as a highly regarded coach. Your tournament course on Upswing was wildly popular back when it was first launched in 2017, 2018. And, it seems as though you're thought to be a guy who's not only very proficient with software, but is able to translate it really well for the student into practical application. How did you onboard yourself in that process? Did you have experience prior with like math, data, things of that nature? Did it come naturally? Like, what was this process like?
Actually, for me, it was sort of like it came from a competitive standpoint where I just heard like a few guys like Stevie, a couple other guys just saying PO solver, this and that. And I was just kind of like, I wasn't, like John was like, I'm just better than everybody at poker, so I'll just play poker and I'll figure it out, right? I was more on the like, I was like, man, it was sort of like a source of anxiety for me to not use it.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's
then
like, why wouldn't I?
It wasn't even why wouldn't I? It was like, I need to do this so that I can, to be honest with you, like I'll probably a little bit of form of like mental stuff where I was kind of like, no, I need to know more than everybody all the time so that they think I'm the best. And if somebody starts talking about PO solver and I don't know what they're talking about, I'm going to look like I'm not the best and I don't know everything. It wasn't sort of like, so that's not the healthiest approach, right? I was just kind of like, anything poker, if I think I'm going to be one of the best, I need to know everything. I need to be able to talk about this and make people feel like I know more than them, right?
Like you have to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Like you have to know like the lead spots first. You have to know like the sizes and
It's just wanting to be an authority in your domain.
Exactly. But not necessarily in like just the purest way, right? Like some self-serving stuff there with ego stuff or whatever. But I would say that, so I just bought it and I self-taught, and no, I wasn't proficient like with any kind of software whatsoever. I literally started running it like locally on my computer, and I was like, oh my God, I'm taking a really long time to figure out like what I'm supposed to do on King 8-4. And then I kind of started, then I bought like, my progression was I bought this ridiculous computer that was like a supercomputer laptop. I traveled around with that. Then I finally figured out I should probably get some servers. And it just became this obsession where all I did was PO solver all the time. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, I studied the most. It was in like 2015. And I was just like, I played a hand, and it took me down the wrong path for sure, where I was like, but when you're new to that stuff and you don't fully understand, I had a good understanding of the game by those standards of that day. But when something like that comes out, it can trick you and just think like, oh no, this is the answer. Like this is for sure the answer, right? So I was super obsessive about that. Now going back to the question about John, like why do I think it's important? Why did I think it was important for him to learn? I just think that until we have AI that actually you give it a problem and it just pops a solution out of midair, you're like, how am I supposed to play this turn against the aggressive guy? And it just doesn't play a game tree and it just pops it out. The gold standard for understanding exploits and how to play rivers, for example, even are just like, you need to know cold what pre-flop looks like, what the flop looks like, what the turn looks like, what they're supposed to do and what you're supposed to do versus that. And then if you're an amazing poker player like John Jaffe, as long as you know that stuff cold, you could be the best exploit player in the world, right? I'll never buy into somebody being the best intuitive exploitative player that doesn't have that foundation, because maybe they are, but they would be better at it. And especially when you take John and he's going to get thrown in and play against a bunch of young kids that are only using GTO Wizard.
Like good combos everywhere.
Whatever.
Like,
you need to be aware of spots where maybe your old school poker brain is like, what is he supposed to be bluffing with here? And then you get some solver stuff and you're like, wow, there's a lot of things that he's supposed to be bluffing with here. And I had no idea, right? And even for somebody as aggressive as John, even for somebody that's mega aggressive no matter what, it's still basically impossible to be as aggressive as the computer, right? So you're always going to unlock those knowledge gaps, and then you can use them to make your decisions, right? Like, I'm not somebody that thinks you should even randomize river play, right? Like, I don't really believe in that, but I do think that you need to understand exactly cold equilibrium up to that point so that you can make decisions versus people, right? So that's why I pushed John to it, because I was just like, dude, you're like the smartest poker player I know. If you do some work with this stuff and start to see these shapes and these ideas, it's only going to make you better at your part of the game. Like, you don't just say, I don't need that stuff because I'm an exploit player. It's like, it's going to help you, you know?
Yeah, it can't be bad to have more knowledge.
Right.
When you're smart and know how to use it effectively.
Along those lines, obviously, I think all of that makes a lot of sense to both myself and the audience. But along those lines, like in that particular instance, you could take an example like Jonathan, and you know his game pretty well. You understand where the blind spots exist, and you can kind of lead him down a path of corrective study. I'm interested in your take on one-on-one coaching versus making like these courses that you so routinely do. What drives you in both realms? And then maybe tell us a little bit about this course that you're about to launch for GTO Lab.
Yeah, so for private coaching, I'll say the difference first, especially for somebody like me. Anyone that's worked with me would attest to the fact that I actually, every single session, that's not something that I have like a prepackaged thing that I'm doing with everybody I coach, right? So a lot of coaches that work with stables or whatever, I've seen the same how to barrel the turn document passed around. And it's like, this guy's given the same lesson for years and years and years, right? So that's the difference with if you're somebody that's showing up every session and doing something that's unique to that person, you can't really replicate it with content or videos, right? Because it's a back and forth, and maybe unlocking one heuristic in a hand discussion is massive for them for the next 3 months, right? Just one thing or so. So I think the main thing with, it's kind of like golf, right? It's like you can watch a video from one of the best golf coaches in the world, a 45-minute video, but like the mechanics, not really having him there and tell you like, oh no, it needs to be a little bit different. I think that's the whole thing. So a lot of times people might take something away from a video, but they actually have it wrong, but they think they have it right, and then they got nothing out of it. So I think that's the difference between private coaching and making the videos, which is also why when I make videos, I try to lay out very clearly what's the point of this and what are you going to learn, and this is bang, 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 right? Back in the day in like 2018, when I made those courses, my differentiator was I had been obsessed with PO Solver for the 3 years prior, and no one even really knew how, if I went on and be like, hey, you should probably have 2 check raise sizes when you run your script or something, that would have been like, people were like, oh my God, like they didn't know how to build this stuff. So my first one was really kind of like node by node, really hard to get through, super dense, just PO Solver the whole time. But that was value add back then. Now I do different things because I think that everybody has GTO Wizard and PO Solver. So every time I make something, I feel like I need to say, how am I adding value to somebody that actually studies a lot? I think that I always ask myself that question about the courses versus private coaching too. But why I got into private coaching is I had a stable that I coached in 2011. I didn't really there's no tools then. So you're kind of I really hated the style of coaching, which John is great at and loves this style I'm about to say, where people just talk to you about poker and you just answer them.
Right.
I hated that because I'm like,
it's too much of an appeal to authority.
It's yes. And it's also just like, I don't know every spot, and I obviously still don't. It's kind of like, I just say, you're going to pay me to say stuff. I don't know. So, but when we had stuff that you could prove, and I was learning ahead of other people in like 2015, that's when I really started to enjoy it, because I didn't have that like anxiety of just being like, I'm getting paid to tell people my opinion and I'm wrong. I'm going to be wrong a lot. Right. But I never intended to have a large scale coaching operation. It really came a lot from people would have a big final table and they would be like, I have this final table in 2 days. Can you help me prepare? Or I've done the WSOP main event final table like 5 or 6 times for people. And then they would just stay on as they'd be like, oh, I want to do like 10 hours of Chippy V or whatever else. And it just kept happening. And then they would say their buddy is a reg. And now it's like, I probably have 30, 40 guys because it's just been accumulating. And now it's not even, I don't really think about it monetarily as much as like a sports coaching relationship. And it's like super fun for me to see people get really good and start winning. And there's certain guys, like I coach Clemendang, for example, and now I'm at a final table, 25K final table, like with him. And it's awesome. And he's so good, he probably doesn't need me anymore. But But anyway, like that kind of progression from the students, that sounds cheesy, but that keeps me really engaged, where you feel like you have an obligation to them and they haven't quit yet. So that's a good relationship where you're just part of the journey with them. And I think it really is the truth, but it's a lot of time. So I might be scaling back now, because with all this stuff, it is sort of like hard to give everybody as much time as they need.
Yeah, that makes a lot of. I mean, going down that path, I guess the natural follow up, because I would say I have a similar, to a lesser degree, vantage point on it. I think for me, I always treated one-on-one the exact same way that you described, and I found that got to be me not being the right fit for the vast majority of the people that I attracted. Right, like the vast majority of them are like 2-5 people, where I could just give them a single lesson that I've passed along to all of them, and it would do them wonders. So now they're like overpaying for information that isn't really all that helpful. And I found, as I developed like Solve for Why and the whole company, passing them on to my other coaches who were much better at getting in the weeds of low stake problems was beneficial to everybody. And that made me then want to build to scale. I'm curious what your viewpoint is of the training space now that tools like GTO Wizard exist, now that PO is so readily available. My vantage point, I'm like very bearish on the training side of things. I really think that training sites as we know them are by and large going to fade away. The need for one-on-one coaches will maybe increase, because having an interpreter between the machine and the student is very important, but you can't really do that at scale any longer, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think the training space now, there's issues, right? There's a few issues. You have a big operator, GTO Wizard, who's the stuff is not necessarily, they have a huge library with 1 million sizes, and the whole function of it is, I'm going to be a guy that played a hand in Florida. I get home, I can look it up, and guess what? What I did was fine. Like if you have a bunch of unconverged solves that have 8 sizes, and you have played a reasonable poker hand, you just get your lookup, you're happy, and you're like, this game, I can kind of do anything with everything, which is partially true, right? But like, obviously that's their business model, is they built like a lookup tool that's super nice UI and fancy, but the precision isn't there. But the reason why you're probably right about the training space is just like, if people don't know the precision isn't there, who cares? And who actually cares about precision when they just want to know if they were supposed to call the river or not, and it was a mix, so they're happy and they go home, right?
Yeah.
But there is, I think, room to bring a one-on-one style of learning to training sites, which is sort of like, Run It Once does that. Our new company is a blend of Run It Once and GTO Wizard, where we already have a huge ICM library, but we have Chippy V coming too, and, some different solver capabilities. And then we'll take guys like me or Devoris or John, and we're making personal videos, understanding these heuristics, giving you that like private coaching element. And we have a lot of the best guys making videos every week anyway. So I think that a blend of it that can tap into what people get for private coaching at a lower rate is pretty nice. And I do think that there's some room for that to grow. But overall, I'm going to sign up for this site for my pre-flop ranges. Like, yeah, I think those days are pretty much over.
Right.
But I do think that
Sorry, Jesse.
I do think that there's some
wow,
room
man,
for,
you come on here. You talk.
GG flopped them all.
Yeah. So anyway, you know what I mean? I think like our idea that's going to be hard, like something I would love to do is have like a library, but have pop-up videos for me being like, hey, this is a 30-second video on like, why am I barreling this random hand on the turn, right? Like stuff like that helps people throughout the way. I think that that's something that can work and that I really would like to do in the future. But yeah, there's a lot of players in this space as well, right? But there's also a lot of people in the space.
Yeah, I think that to your point of like building something that's a little bit more bite-sized and digestible, and alongside that having more accurate lookup tools, et cetera, et cetera. I think ultimately the incentive, if you are going to enter that space, is to build a company that GTO Wizard can ultimately acquire and add to their library. Because I see how chess functions, And I recognize, at least from my point of view, that poker is in desperate need of a chess.com. And GTO Wizard has the best path forward to be that. So I've been on the side for a while now of, rather than trying to fight the dragon, to build something that would help bolster that particular arena where we're adding a lot more value to the community as a whole, rather than kind of feeding them the answers that they're looking for. But, you know, ultimately, I was always going to struggle in this space because, you know, you can ask anybody that's been with me from day one. We always came from the mindset of like, we want to provide reasons why things are occurring rather than just like answers in the back of the book. And the audience does not want that.
Yeah, it's tough. But to your point about chess.com, that's the idea. They have those little mini videos.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
So that's something that I want to add, is that just little videos, just like, okay, this is why I think it's a blend of what you're saying, right? It's like, here's the answer. This is why it's happening.
Right.
Not just only why, right? And again, you got to remember too, that people want quick answers after they play poker. The same way, the reason why I got PO solvers to run back to my hotel room every night and check all my hands. Now people can just do it with this massive library that maybe it's not great, but it's pretty reasonable, right? So it's great in terms of precision, right? It's close enough to get your ideas. And if you get really good at interpreting what's important and what's not, it's a great tool, right? So I think that combined with what a training site has that can be unique, but maybe not unique for the masses, is true experts that care about their product a lot, right?
Yeah.
Not just like, hey, I'm Mike Haxton and I checked, I support GTO Wizard or whatever. Guys that are showing you that they care about you learning the same way that you do in a one-on-one lesson. Like, does that make sense? Okay, let's move on. Stuff like that. I think there's still there should be demand for that, because it's so much information to take in yourself, that I do think that a blend is probably the answer.
Yeah, I think that's true. What can people expect from this new course that you're launching with Daniel, as well as the side course that Ike put out? Yeah,
so this is kind of so for Daniel, it's a very intense look at a tournament from it's like it came in now. I think our total with including the ice course is like 35 hours, maybe even a little bit more, like 37 hours. And what it is a look at a tournament strategy from the beginning, chip EV stages, and as ICM grows all the way to the end. So for people, because a big part of what we have right now for GTO Lab is a huge ICM library that's been run to our full precision, and 5-handed and less actually has future game solves. So we put a lot of time and effort into actually making solves that we think are good enough for us to use in our games. That's our big differentiator, and there's a lot of them, so you have a lot of coverage. But so within using that tool, Daniel kind of goes through all of the mechanics behind ICM adjustments from a lot of different pre-flop stuff. So for people that are looking for, if they're still kind of new to ICM, or what's important and what's not, because it's not like we're saying, hey, play this way, or we're pointing out what's important, what's not. I have a whole video on why ICM 50 is garbage, and it's my own solver. So we're being pretty honest about that stuff. But anyway, and then my stuff is sort of, I was in charge of making chip EV videos, so I just kind of took a bunch of different common spots that I think are valuable and misplayed, and made quick videos about like, okay, this is what's important here. This is what you're going to learn. Prove it with the solver for a second, talk about mechanics, and move on to the next one. So that part is just like little videos that I think are interesting and helpful. And then Ike did his came in at like 7.5 hours of multi-way stuff, and it's just Ike talking about poker. So I would say if you have the approach that you want to buy something and listen to experts talk about poker and maybe draw those heuristics and put them into play in a bunch of different ways, it's really great value. And then there's a lot of post-flop ICM stuff as well, which I've spent 10 years or more doing. I probably spent a lot of time in the PO, almost the most time in the PO post-flop library, and we added a lot of that stuff. So it's a lot of ICM stuff, varying degrees of specificity. I think it kind of applies for everyone, and it would be geared towards people really that want to start to understand those ICM mechanics and how their game's changing. So yeah.
And to be clear, like alongside the course, GTO Lab also has a lookup database functionality where is this just chip EV stuff, or is this also ICM final table stuff?
Right now it's all ICM stuff, and we have like 14,000 sims, where if you just look up, so if you're preparing for a final table, like me and Landon just had a final table, you could play against the trainer in that kind of setup and just play a bunch of hands and get ready maybe for.
So you can custom the stack sizes and the distribution.
And you can look up any spot. You can play the trainer. It'll feed you. You could just play a trainer for 2 hours and kind of get ready to face real life decisions at a final table. You can train it just for your practice every day, and you can look up for sort of any ICM spot within reason. I mean, if you're talking about 9-handed, are you going to get literally the exact situation? No, but it's going to be useful for comparison 100%. And then we're almost finished doing a full chip EV library. We have a full chip EV pre-flop. We have pre-flop in equal stack, which is, I think, very useful because equal stack shallow for tournaments is quite useless. So yeah, we basically have everything that you need for pre-flop right now. And we have chip EV coming out, and we have videos from a lot of the best players in the world online and live coming out every week that seem to be quite popular so far.
I guess, like, can you let us in a little bit on how the sausage is made? Like, how do you guys develop this sim library of like 14,000 ICM sims?
So that one was so Daniel, Devoris and I, and also Orpin happened to be like an HRC wizard, which is very funny from a recreational player. Yeah, he knows more about how to optimize and run everything than we did. So we just worked on the parameters, and our big focus was, let's make sure that we have really good settings and that we actually have good solves down to the, probably the maximum precision that is required. So we just spent a bunch of money on servers and just started firing them off. And we took all the stack distributions actually got from online data. So they're real things that happen in these tournaments. So the stack distributions that you search are the ones that came up over millions and millions of tournaments. So we kind of figured out what are the distributions that happen, and then what are the settings that we want, and we got to run it all the way down and not have any shortcuts so that when people look something up, it's actually good. And we've gotten feedback from some top online guys that it's certainly really different, and that's why they like it so much. So we are, a lot of the guys that like our stuff and are aware of it now are just like pros, but obviously it applies to everybody. But the pros are noticing it first because those little details matter to them.
Yeah, I think that's a good audience to capture, though, because if you can get the hard vouch, so to speak, from other high stakes professionals and whatnot, the word gets out pretty quickly. People want to mimic those that are in the arena and winning lots of money.
Yeah, it's just great for us because we actually cared a lot about building it. So it's, even if we don't have 10,000 subscribers a month, it's awesome that there's a bunch of pros that are like, these videos are great, the software is great, I love using the trainer.
Yeah, I think that's true. Along those lines, you mentioned that you and Landon did final table with 25K together. That was tough for me to watch, man. I'm not gonna lie. Not because like I'm the qualified viewer by any stretch of the imagination, but as a man who is emotionally invested in Landon's results as well as financially, it pains me to see some of the things that you have to do in a four-handed game. I mean, like, there are three scenarios that occurred from four-handed down, one of which was queens running into ace-king, and somehow they never saw a flop. Another one was set over set, where nobody went broke. And
that hurt both of us.
Yes, painfully so. And the third one was tens versus jacks versus queens, where all three stacks weren't in the middle. And these are
I didn't see that one.
These are all foreign concepts to me.
Yeah.
The 10 spot was annoying. I was willing to die against Nacho, but then I got saved.
I mean, we got saved.
I opened button off like 30 bigs. Nacho 3-bet small blind, and then Shannon clicks big blind.
Oh.
I just like winged it into the muck. Yeah. Seems like you kind of have to, but I would have jammed. I would have gone with jacks. I beat tens.
Sure.
Tens doesn't beat nines.
I don't know anything about anything, man. I would have went broken every spot with every one of the hands.
Nacho was saying when he called off, he's like, "Man, I didn't want to call here." He's like, it just felt like he had queens or something.
Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, I thought that, taking my own personal bias out of it and now actually getting into the final table strategies of MTTs, there's a lot of nuance to it. Obviously, it's fascinating. Everybody else in this room, aside from me, can appreciate it.
Yeah, you're not here for any of it.
But maybe walk us through some of the spots as you saw them, like your King 10 versus Laskowitz's Queens. That from an outsider's perspective may look punty, but I think from an insider's perspective, it's just kind of natural progression of how hands play.
Yeah, so I think just as I agree with you that a lot of the different sort of strategies and extreme ideas are misguided. And also I think that without a lot of reps at looking at these things, like you could go through the GTO Lab solutions or any solutions. I'm not just trying to market the thing. Like you could look through a bunch of different pre-flop stuff. And if you don't look at it enough, you might just get these ideas like, I'm not allowed to flat call opens at final tables, or I have to play 3-bet or fold. I have to fold 9s here. I'm not allowed to call. A lot of it's not even true. You just got to look at more spots and they're very nuanced. But there is this overall idea that like it's a binary thing. You have to be really tight when you're covered. Post flop strategies. When I watch these things, no one's doing anything. Like no one makes hero calls. No one bluffs. People don't find flop check raises. There's no linearity and complexity to their game. And you're watching these things and it's just like, why do you think you have to play like this? Like you're going to get dealt value hands and you should probably try to get paid with them. But if you watch these things, it's a lot of like very passive play. Like just kind of a basic understanding of like, yeah, ICM switch is on now, so I have to be tight. I'm not allowed to do this. So there should be a lot more play than we're seeing. I think the best players, the more creative players like Ponikovs or Adrian or whoever you want to use, like those guys play poker at final tables and that's why they win all the time. And if you have this idea that you're like, I'm going to be the best player in the world because I folded 9s pre-flop, it's like, I don't think so, man. Like, I think you're probably going to have to do some other stuff to win poker tournaments. And so, like,
tell that to Kessler, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the whole idea of like how tight everything is and how passive, like, I think it's just misguided. You can look at a few things that have extreme conditions and then get some bad ideas. I think also too, not understanding the limitations of the solver in terms of like, it's just understanding kind of what the stack ratios are and forecasting a finishing position. And it doesn't know anything about poker. So maybe it just regrets putting in one big blind to see a flop far too much than it should. That stuff is important too. And whenever I talk to people about this stuff, that's what I talk about a lot is like, you got to understand you're going to have to run some bluffs against a chip leader. You're going to have to get some value bets in. You defending King 9 off with 50% of the field pay remaining is fine. Like you're putting in one big blind.
Probably take a flop there.
You can flat the small blind with 5-6 suited and try to flop a straight. Like, yeah, like it's not right. It just doesn't have to be super complicated. It's sort of like there's a lot. You should be playing a lot more normal than what it looks like. So I understand your frustrations. Maybe you should. I remember when you played tournaments, you were one of the only guys just limping all the time.
Hell yeah, brother. Hell yeah.
That's not allowed at final tables by any of the nerds, but you could go and throw their whole equilibrium.
Yeah, the only thing that'll happen is Nicky P will get texts about you.
I made a WSOP final table the summer after COVID. I think it was 2021 or 2022, something like that. And I limped like ace-9 suited from the hijack and got ISO'd by a fish. And ultimately, I check called, check folded on ace-7x, and he has set of sevens. But at that point, Landon told me it was illegal, and I was no longer allowed to limp at final tables. And I came home, and I actually took off my cleats and hung them up on the wall. I said, that's it. That's it. And it's not because I want to limp. It's because the motivation behind limping was trying to be contrarian in some capacity to the field. Like, I didn't do it because I was thinking in terms of like greatest EV play. We didn't think that way in 2009, 2010, you know? It was more so just observing like what everybody was doing and thinking to myself, well, I fancy myself a flop, turn, and river kind of guy. And I'm just going to get to see a lot more of them if I don't have to invest my entire fucking stack before the flop. And a lot of good things came from it because people would overreact. It's like you would limp, and guys who would like fold ace-7 off from the hijack if it had folded to them are suddenly like opening 5x.
Exactly. It does. Like if you're somebody, I mean, Makita still does it.
Yeah.
Makita's one of the best players in the world, and he doesn't care about what you're allowed to do and not. He's going to take people off tree and understand that spot better. Like if you want to just invent new little micro games that you're better than people at, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
I don't do it because I don't view myself as somebody like Makita who's, you know, on the fly, like just gonna play the spot better than other great players.
Right.
But if you can do it, like do it.
People are
for
also
sure,
very
right?
good post flop now. You know,
Yeah.
10 years ago, 15 years ago, people were pretty fucking tragic. And, you know, it was the same thing then as you're kind of like reiterating now. The inability to put enough money in with the proper candidates has always been the driving force for win rate in this game, no matter what you're playing, tournaments, cash, or otherwise, right?
100%.
And it's just a lot different now. Like people are willing to put closer to the right amount of money in, but they're still way off in a lot of situations. And ironically enough, you and Landon both found yourselves exiting this event bluff catching with a hand, or both of you bluff catching with hands that probably are just theoretically good bluff catchers. But it, you know, kind of begs the question.
Not mine. Go ahead.
Well, I just know you had a pair. I don't even know what the spot was, but I think it's worth talking about because you know, in these situations where you find yourself in spots where, you know, you're gonna have to make some hero calls and hero folds. What would ever drive you to the side of hero call? Like how much data do you need to see that people are getting it right in the bluff node to start lending yourself to hero call?
So for me, you know, even we've talked about all this solver stuff and this and that. On like I kind of talked about with John, like on rivers, I just pieced the hand together to the best of my ability and understand sort of what somebody is supposed to do based on my, you know, my knowledge of the spot, and then ask myself, like, is it easy for them to be over bluffing here or under bluffing? And then I just make a decision with my range. Like I'm never like, oh my God, I bet pot, I have to defend half my range.
Right,
it's just like, or you know, if I fold this hand, I'm going to get run over or this and that. I don't think that way. And then it naturally, I think, works itself out. I try to arrive at a decision where I'm like, he's supposed to give up a bunch of he has a bunch of, like this hand, for example, I won't get into specifics, but it's like chip leader opens a cutoff, I defend, and the board runs out where it's queen 9-3 with a flush draw, brick turn, double flush draw, but the river is the 10 of spades. So it's the front door flush draw. So it means that it's a really wet river card, right? So it looks like a spot where my hand is a piece of shit, and it is. But the nature of like a board changing river like that, especially against a wide cutoff range, like if this guy's opening 50% or more from the cutoff with all these junky offsuit ace X and offsuit king X, when he gets to the river, his value is going to be what it is, right? It's going to be a set, a straight, and flushes. And I have king 9 on a queen 9-3, 2-10. So I block king jack, I block a set. I don't really care about that too much, but I'm just looking at the river, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, he has to have bombed a flush draw on the turn to have value, and he probably didn't bomb like a really big flush draw. That doesn't make any sense. What is he trying to make me fold something when he has like ace jack of spades?
Getting jammed on sucks too from you.
I didn't expect to see, he ends up showing down 5-6 of spades.
Draw.
I never expected to see a combo draw because it's not criticizing him. I was saying, like, in my mind, if I was in that spot, which is something I got wrong, I'd be like, this is a really shitty hand to have to bet and face a jam, right? So my thought process is just like, if I'm reverse engineering this hand, I'm like, he opened like every ace, right? So he has all these ace of spades hands. He has like king 7 off, maybe king of spades. Like he's chip leader. I'm just like, it's pretty damn hard to have value. It's really easy. Like you can have any bluff in the deck, but you have to have a flush, pocket 9s or king jack to have a value hand. And then I was like, I know this is a fold, which I think is funny because a lot of people are like, why'd you call that? I'm like, you know, you don't think that I thought it was a call, right? So you probably know.
I think that's part of the thing is like they forget that like you can actually think about the game more than like what the machine has to say.
Of course, I would have bet literally every dollar that I have that it's a pure fold, like sitting there when I'm tanking. If I could bet on it that it's a pure fold, I would bet everything.
Yeah,
I would take out loans. But it's like when I think about the spot, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know Shannon that well. Maybe like I honestly believe like I probably would just go back and call most of the field down anyway, just because I think it's the way the hands work. it's
like,
going to
just
be
the
massively
ranges.
over bluffed, right? But I got shown a hand that I did not think was in the range. So maybe that means I'm wrong, and maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe he's never bluffing me, and it was terrible, and I'm a whale, and I was getting back 0% of the pot, like we talked about with
He
the young
played a
guys.
sick one against me where he bluffed me. He knows how to bluff a river.
I
and
think,
bluff a
I mean,
turn.
like I said, like if you have a guy that's just winning all this low stakes, mid high stakes stuff all the time, everywhere from 1500s to 25Ks, he probably knows how to bluff with the chip lead. And in this spot, I think it's incredibly hard, even for somebody like me who's saying about all this stuff about precision. It's like, I think it's possible I could over bluff something like Ace of Spades 5 there or something and just get to the river and like never give up. Get to the river with random low cards and not give up, because the board changing thing, especially under ICM, it's real bad for the big blind too, right? You don't just get to check call a lot of flush draws. So anyway, I think the point is just like, yeah, if you think somebody's if you mess around with a spot like that, you make them bluff all the time. You just call your whole range. Doesn't matter if it's ICM or wherever else, or if they're not bluffing, and maybe that was the case there. Your call's terrible. Do I care about how the computer gets to the river and plays the river and look at what I'm supposed to do? Like, no, not at all. Not at this point. Maybe when I really sucked and I had to understand some stuff. But at this point, it's just like,
it's like you've seen it all, like you know what it's supposed to look like, and you're willing to bet on your own decisions as a gambler.
Yeah, and I think
it's just a hand.
I think it's possible that in weaker moments, I would have been like, this is going to look real bad if I'm wrong.
What do people think?
But then now I'm just like, yeah, whatever. It's going to look real bad.
I got to tell you, as a man who has had that thought pass between the ears a time or two, it serves you to not really give it any mind. You do you.
It's hard.
It's your money. It just gotta.
Sometimes
I called Chris Truck down. I called Chris Truck down for a pot-sized jam in 2017 with King Jack of clubs, where I flopped a combo draw, and it turned two-tone. Sorry, it wasn't King Jack because he had Ace Jack, but effectively, I think maybe I had King 10 of clubs. It was like, I don't know, Queen Jack 9, or no, that would give me nuts. Queen Jack X.
Was it on
Poker Go? Yeah,
I remember this.
Yeah, it was like Queen Jack X, 2 clubs, turn, backdoor hearts, river pairs the jack, and he just yeets it for pot. And I was just like, you know what? This guy's not bluffing clubs here. I don't believe him. I think he missed a backdoor combo draw. Call. He goes, Ace Jack, full house. I was like, okay, well, we got that one wrong, and Polk's going to make a video about it, but that's life. I'm going to get an invite to the next game. We're all going to move on.
Chalk it up.
Yeah. It's just like sometimes you're wrong. And,
I would say it's consistent with like what I'm saying. My methodology is I have gone the completely other way on a huge stream in a huge spot and just been completely wrong as well.
Yeah. Wrong in both spots.
Just super tight, super loose.
Right, like gonna fold a set because this guy's just not gonna embarrass me, and then sure as shit they show up with the 8 high.
Yep, exactly.
Following the machine kind of gives you like a crutch a little bit if you don't want to trust yourself.
The only reason I bring it is just like, I do think that if you're playing your best, you're trying to make decisions and you're going to miss in both directions. It could be a polar pre-flop spot where you're going to fold 10s for no reason, or it could be a river spot. But being willing to do that, I think, is how you play real poker. And following kind of like scripted strategies is like a way to be all right, but never really make real decisions that can make extra money and just make you a great player and hard to play against, right? Like, I don't know. I think it's more important to just...
So you're not randomizing is what you're saying?
I think it's actually that part, I think it is really important if you're playing at a high level to randomize. Like, it's really hard for a human to just play pre-flop correctly without randomizing. All of a sudden, you're just like, wow, I haven't 3-bet like a hand that's really nice post-flop hand in a long time because it's just... I have Ace Jack suited. Call, So I think randomizing is a really important pre-flop. I think it's very difficult to check raise a flop like as much as you're supposed to without randomizing, because you just look at every gut shot or everything else, and all of a sudden you're like, I could check raise all this stuff, right? So in a game where you're supposed to kind of start by over bluffing and whittle it down to the river, I think it's really important that you do something to control what you're doing on early streets, and then as you get to rivers, you just manually take over the whole thing. I would argue that's probably what the greatest cheaters in online poker did, is they had it automated to like the river, and then they just like make their river decisions for themselves. And that's how I would say you can play the best for sure, is just like hammer everybody's fundamentals from early streets all the way to the river, and then just completely tailored strategies on rivers for different players.
Yeah, I think in my spot when I busted third to Nacho, just the way that I saw the ranges pre-flop based off the machine and what they actually are going to make a pretty big difference to my strategy, where he opened the button where he's 2 of 3, but he and I are kind of close. I defend big blind with 10-9 off like 23 bigs. Flops 10-8, 3 flush draw. I have 10 of hearts, so the suit, and 9 of diamonds. I check, and he bets quarter. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I think he's kind of honest with his sizings, where like if he's got like a bigger hand, like there's some instances of the stream where this was true, where if he bets bigger on flop, he's got like a more vulnerable hand he wants to protect, like maybe like an overpair, like a stronger 10x. But he goes tiny, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, in theory, I should probably be more conservative and like kind of play some check call poker and maybe check raise a little bit better. But his range is probably going to be wider on the button than theory, where in theory, he's supposed to be folding his hand like king 3 suited, where it's king 5 suited as the bottom, and he's playing like a 27% RFI, so you're not playing that many hands. Shannon can do stuff in the small blind. Me winning and defending like kind of gets scary for him too. So I probably just should have trusted my instinct that he's too wide and gone for a check raise, and the size is like 2e check raise, so like you go pretty big, protect the hand and make him just fold his garbage and his overcards, and if he has you beat, that's just
in
life.
this instance, I wouldn't change anything.
Well, it
He would've
depends.
called in,
Maybe he
Jordan.
would have called the flop. Maybe he would have made like some tight fold and just thought it had value. Who knows? Who really
Wolf.
cares?
And if we're bet folding bottom pair and an over, I'm just fucking totally.
You had done
with
anyways
guys.
when I folded queens.
I
Which
was.
was a
You're
good
right.
fold, by the way.
Yeah,
But
you're
anyways,
right,
yeah. So like in that spot, I should probably just take what I know opponent wise and just trust the concept of like getting the money in versus trying to be more defensive and like, oh no, it's 3-handed. Like there's some ICM here. Like let's kind of like see what happens. Maybe he won't barrel the turn enough. Turns a king and I check call, and the river's a deuce and I check call, where in theory you're never supposed to fold a 10 because you're mostly supposed to check raise it. So you're mostly indifferent with your 8s, which makes a lot of sense. But in game, I was just like, you know what? I don't know if he's going to triple it off enough. And I span a 50-50 and roll the call, where the real answer is just check raise the flop. And like if there was something to take from that, that's the answer. But again, like it's just a hand of poker. Who really knows what's going on? Maybe he's bluffing enough. Maybe he's not. He's won a bunch of money in the past couple years, and like he's played some pretty insane hands, and sometimes they're allowed to just have it, and that's okay. Move on. That's tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think the only thing I would say is like, maybe you could have tried, instead of spinning, you can just try to get like a real answer in your head.
Yeah.
Maybe if I felt like I had to randomize, I would
Just fold.
just fold.
I think that's a really good.
Even though I made a way
listened-
worse call.
I wish I listened to that advice. I've randomized like 3 or 4 times, and it's just only hurt me every single time.
I just don't see, like usually on the like it's not such a there's not so many moving parts, right? When we get to the river,
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah, there's not.
it's like did Nacho do this with these hands?
Yeah.
And then if you don't know, I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
whatever.
It's either good or that's the thing. It's either always good or bad.
I think so.
It's always good or bad, and
very binary.
you kind of just have to trust yourself, even if you're getting bluffed in the spot where the machine would pay. Be like, okay, he's allowed to bluff you. Like part of the game is being allowed to get bluffed, even if it looks really dumb when you fold a pure call.
One thing I did notice about the way that landscape in the Poker Go studio has changed is kind of exactly what you're saying, where it seems like everyone's like really mad when like they open and somebody 3-bets and they fold and they're like, I'm not. Or like, did you bluff me?
No one looks angrier than Sam, by the way.
It's like,
no one looks angrier than Sam when he gets 3-bet.
It's like, did you bluff me? And I'm like, I don't know. We came up just being like, yeah, okay, you bluffed me and I had a fold. We're moving on now. Like, It's not this like.
Yeah, but we came up in the world where Mormon was trying to see how many clicks it took to get to the center of an 8-bet.
Yes,
and
he still did it to me last summer. But that's what I mean is we used to just play and it wasn't like personal. Like I feel like now it's kind of like there's a little bit of like I'm not allowed to get bluffed. I'm not allowed to do this, and it's like you got to get bluffed. Yeah. I just coached somebody for heads up match. And when I told him that, I was like, dude, you got to stop calling every bluff catcher, you know? And he's like, oh, yeah, okay, cool, yeah. Then he just started winning.
Right, like, and additionally, like, just kind of get in their head of like, and just know, like, if we can make a sweeping statement, the thing that, if you think you have an edge on your opponent, especially in a heads-up match, the thing they're probably not doing nearly enough of is finding bluffs.
Yep.
Like when it's all said and done, even though they have way too many to choose from, everybody just cowers. Right, and we choose the bluffs that feel most comfortable because we have like knowledge of the hand.
It's so weird in a game like Heads Up, and depending on like the size of the bet, how little you have to be right though.
Oh yeah,
because of the dead pot, you know.
Nobody pays more than me. I get it.
Someone bets pot, you got to win a third of the time, man.
Yeah, it's like
it can't be that hard, but maybe it is.
You're getting 0% of that pot back, young man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it honestly though, I do feel like that vibe of like don't bluff me or like did you bluff me comes from every bullet you feel like there's more in your control. Like if you could catch them bluffing and win this big pot, it's your turn to win the tournament. But if you fold this spot, you don't win anymore because that pot was taken from you. Right, so it's kind of like an entitlement thing of like, I want to win. I haven't won anything.
Yeah.
How dare you 3-bet me? I probably should have shoved ace 4 suited when they just sitting there with queens. Like, yeah.
You want to know who the people who are most?
Landon is fighting an internal battle every day at the bar.
It's fighting for
life out there.
To get bluffed. Like you're allowed to.
He's right.
So I'm talking to one of the guys that just gets mad when he gets bluffed.
Yeah, he's right. And you want to know the people who get the most pissed off about this? It's the people who are V-pipping the most. Like,
how dare you 3-bet me when I play the deck?
Right, at least from my perspective, it's like I play with some VIPs, shout out to my favorites, that are playing way too many hands, and they loathe getting bluffed. Like, they take pride somehow in playing the deck and also not ever getting bluffed. And my new favorite thing, I used to love to windmill a bluff in their face. I thought it was like the greatest thing on earth because like visibly they would tilt. But then I realized they're sharper than that. Like, it's all fucking mirage. They're not whales. They're VIPs. Like, they're different, you know? A whale is, we'll 11 the chair this guy. A VIP is just like, yeah, VIP is just like, or a fun player is just like, okay, we'll build a game around this person, right? Big difference. The ladder knows how to play the fucking game. And they fake being like irate, but they're adjusting because you're showing them what you're fucking doing. So I've come across a new thing. Now I take the most ambiguous card that I could possibly have, one that like represents literally half of value and half of bluffs, and I just flash it.
Yeah.
And they always have this like calm reaction of like, he didn't bluff me. It had to be the ace 4 of hearts, of course. Yeah. And it's like, we all get to keep playing the game a little bit as you move forward.
It's surprising how often you don't realize when you play more hands, you're supposed to get check raised more by thinner value because that's how value works.
Yeah, but we know that doesn't actually happen. So rightfully so, you get pissed off when somebody finds it.
Right.
It's not the way it's supposed to be.
Find it.
I'm just imagining, like, Landon looks very calm at the poker table when he makes a fold, but now I know, like, in his head, there's this second Landon that looks sort of like a Landon Tyler Durden mixed together, and it's just sitting there being like, now you don't deserve to win the tournament, you little bitch. Because you made that fold.
The more he's bopping up and down, the more you can he's just absolutely steaming.
I did watch a few of those hands. You were
like
very animated at the table. I was surprised.
Yeah, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Why do you laugh?
I was crying. I was crying the whole time because of Nacho. He's just so unbelievable. The whole time, like, Shannon's making a 3-bet and he folds and goes, Shannon Shaw playing the fucking game.
Man, nobody was even talking to you.
Why did you just make him British, first of all?
In my head, I'm just hearing that through my head when I'm 4-betting. Like, because I know he's going to say that as soon as, like, Shannon folds, like, I let it go.
Just start dying
I'm preparing
laughing.
for that moment.
You're such an idiot.
I know.
He's like, I got a 4-bet.
I saw one even on the turn though. One time it's like goes check, and then the turn goes like one line to a straight, and ace king's a straight. I think you had ace 10, and you just kind of cracked. You just laughed a little bit, and I was like, I wonder if he just does this if he turned a straight with ace king. Like, I don't know.
No, he's thinking like, oh, you just let him turn a straight. Now you don't deserve to win the tournament.
Bitch. I saw a couple laughs pop in there.
There's just so much that's going through my head while someone else is in the tank, and some of it's poker related, and some of it's just only memes.
Laskowitz hates this.
It's just only memes.
He's just spamming the group chat the whole time. Fucking tellbox.
Yeah.
This kid's a tellbox.
Like, I wish I had a 4-bet bluff because I would just do the same thing and click and laugh. Because in my head, I'm like, oh my god, here comes the 4-bet playing the fucking game.
Such an idiot,
bro. That accent is everything but Argentinian.
I couldn't agree more. It's like it's out of like.
I'm trying to do too much.
It's a combination of like something out of Snatch, like meets the Irish Poker Open.
It's Boondock Saints, I think.
Wow, what a good movie.
Yeah, there was just a lot of laughs in my head. You know, a lot of memes. It's all just a joke.
Wild scenes. Well, while we're talking about laughs, let's obviously play you out with the most legendary moment of your career. I know you've won 38 million and everything else, but this is the meme that will live in infamy.
Biggest Sunday of the year. So excited to be playing today. Can't wait. Good luck, everybody. Grow up. Man, son.
So funny.
I mean, yeah, that was sent privately to Darren as just a funny video because we just send each other funny videos like that all the time, and he just decided to blast it off on the internet, and now comes up every single year at least once.
Yeah, for sure.
There's like a half dozen beer reviews also on Darren's Twitter that I found when I was looking for that. So those private ones have also made it to the public realm.
Same story. He's got one in the chamber where I'm rattlesnaking Bud Lights like in my bathtub. Yeah, he didn't let that one out yet because I was like, you can't put that one out.
We'll wait till like you win the main event or something. Like,
yeah. As whenever I win one of these Tritons and retire, he can just blast.
Once
that
you
one
have
out.
fuck you money, the Stone Cold the Stone Cold Petrangelo is gonna come out for sure.
Exactly.
Like, have you ever played poker with like some of your good friends and like just in your head you're just thinking to yourself about like a bunch of the jokes?
Are
that
we
you guys
back
have
on
had?
this?
No, just me like I was asking if you've experienced this. Like,
brain works.
like I'm asking if you've experienced this, like you playing like pots versus your friends, like you're just thinking about some absurd stuff that happened.
He
that
clearly
doesn't
has something else to say about it.
I wouldn't think that I would do it
At a 25K final
it's
table.
not just
when I'm like cold 4-betting with playing for 500K. Not to be a dick, no. The answer is no.
It's not just about the spot.
It's like, no, wait a minute though. Like, haven't you ever been jerking off and like a joke just runs through your head? Like you just start dying laughing.
It's not just like that spot. Like I keep it together playing against like Laskowitz or Chewy or Sam or Nick. I can't keep it together because it's just too much. It's too much funniness.
Bro, you need to work on that.
But like it doesn't change anything. I'll just like ravage off dust and also have value. Like saying I'm a box because I had value.
He's balanced.
I am. Like I'm thinking in my head playing the game when I check raised the 7-8 against Shannon. He piled on me with the ace-9.
I mean, yeah. Godspeed.
Yeah.
That one wasn't fun either. Who wants to get check raised off or blown off?
I didn't think I was gonna get jammed on. He jammed on me.
You were wrong.
Yeah, it was
Tellbox.
Queen 6 Deuce 9 double flush draw.
Fucking tellbox.
Multi-way. Shannon opens. I call small blind. 7-8 suited. Nacho calls big blind. Queen 6 Deuce. 2 hearts and a club. Check, check, check. Turn 9 of clubs. I mix a bet or a check raise. So I check. Nacho checks. Shannon bets tiny. Like, okay, here we go. Time to check raise. So I check raise. Fold. And then he banks twice. I'm thinking in my head, Nacho's about to be like, Landon playing the fucking game
So now
again.
Landon cracks and starts busting up laughing.
And then Shannon just piles in the ace-9.
Like, I would just pure jam on you. It doesn't matter.
I'll just have a set, though.
Okay, so have a fucking set, man. Like, you're going to laugh in that spot? You got my money.
I will.
You just got my money. What set? I have a 9. The queens? You don't have queens
I don't
ever?
have queens. I have 9s and deuces.
Yeah, well, I have a 9. Fuck you. I'm all in.
Yeah.
Enough's enough, man.
Laugh at that.
Playing
Like,
the fucking game.
That's what I'm saying. It's funny. And not just like
Who the fuck
Shannon.
is this guy?
Christ, how many hundreds of thousands did we lose because of a laugh?
It's all jokes at the end of the day, man. You gotta laugh yourself.
Oh, speaking of the laugh, we must say goodbye and bid adieu to our little laugh track. Today's Conrad's final episode. We got to see him off with a formal salute and maybe give Landon the chance to belly laugh in his place.
That's right.
Thank you for your services, Conrad.
Yes,
Good luck in the
thank you,
Midwest,
Landon.
wherever the fuck you're going to.
Somewhere
Win
in
some
the
money.
Midwest. You know, maybe we'll come back. Won't be only friends, but maybe we'll be back. We'll see.
Okay, don't hold your breath, everybody.
Well, I'm gonna hold my breath.
All right. Well, it's been nice knowing you. Nick, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
this has
of course.
been a pleasure. If you guys want to check out his new course, you can find it at GTO Lab. I don't think it's launched yet. Is that correct?
It's launched. Yeah.
Okay, it has.
Yep.
So head over and check that out. Comes with a secondary course put out by Ike on multi-way spots. $9.99. Steal of the century. Go ahead and get after it. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back next week, final week.
Wow.
About to put this thing to bed. Be sure to join us noon every day. We'll see you guys all then.
Thanks,
Peace.
squad.
Thanks, guys.